The opportunity today, as we talk about the Cambria, this is 116 rooms, has a very contemporary design, but I want to talk a little bit about one of the features and benefits that we added to this that I think is very important. That's the rooftop. The rooftop bar. Well, it will be named, but for this conversation, we have the rooftop bar and a cafe up there, kind of a bistro effect up at the rooftop. Now, we got 116 rooms here, but right next to us, literally next to us, right on our property line, is the Fairfield. And for those of you that are familiar with Ocoee, you probably know where the Fairfield is in relation to the subject land here. So we looked at this project and we said, hey, you know what? We really need to take a look at capturing not only in-house crowd, not only the community at large, not only the business community at large, but also our neighbor, because they have no food and beverage. So really, if we can create a vibe and synergies, we're really creating an asset that from a food and beverage standpoint has the opportunity to cater to 200 keys versus 116 keys. And so with that, and as we go through this presentation, we'll highlight the opportunities that we see by having that relationship. Ocoee is truly a community that has been growing. It is the third largest community in Orange County, and expectations is it for become number 2. Okay, they're adding about 500 residences a year. Through the city of Ocoee, they're very pro development. They're spending money to improve the roadways, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. They're beautifying a turnaround section, which will be right at our intersection of where the hotel is going. They're putting, as I said, the dollars for the infrastructure is, we believe, going to pay major dividends in really beautifying and enhancing what you see there today and taking it to a whole nother level. As the community evolves around us, and both from a corporate and resident standpoint, we also believe that it will create even stronger demand to reach and exceed our financial expectations, both in occupancy rate as well as in food and beverage as well, because we do have approximately 3,000 overall square feet. What do we got there? 1,500 of event space and 450 in a boardroom there. And so we have the flex space there is also going to allow us to play off of our outside terrace area as well. So we can do pre and post-con events to what's happening inside that flexible space there. And so we believe that that will also bode well for catered business besides the food and beverage will generate from the passerbys and our community, as well as our capture of the 2 hotels. You know, Choice Hotel is a major brand, as I'm sure all of you are aware of. We put some of their brands that they represent there through Choice. Cambria is, to us, is a very exciting brand. We believe that Cambria is really moving forward with a very upscale, very creative, very out-of-the-box look and feel to allow you as a developer to take on, to be creative, take on the local community in this lifestyle hotel. They have loosened restrictions relative to CapEx, relative to making sure that A, you maintain the asset, but not out of just because they feel this needs to be done. It has purpose and reason for what they're looking to do and for what they're asking their franchisors to contribute to make this work. Now, they have 77 locations and growing as we speak. And Their Cambrias really are exciting. Even if you went on the internet and just kind of Googled Cambrias, I think you'll get the idea and the feel for where we're going and why we're moving in this direction with this brand.
So this map here just gives you a quick overview of what's within the mile radius of the site. So you see from the airport, you're within the 20-mile range, about 15 minutes. And if we go to the next slide, Robert, we'll show you some of the major demand generators that are within minutes from the site. So you see number one is going to be the site there, the Cambria, and within 0.5 miles you have Mannheim, Orlando. Mannheim is one of the nation's largest car auction centers here in the nation. You have mark number 3, you have Cisco Foods. It's their distribution center for all of Orlando, so it's a big corporate office there as well. You have Paradise Grills, mark number 4, their corporate office. Then at 5, within a mile, we have Orlando Health. This is a 250-bed hospital. It's also on 85 acres. It's a medical campus, so it's a learning facility. So what does that mean? They're bringing in doctors and nurses to learn. It's a studying facility, so that creates more demand because they need to stay within the area. And number 6, we have the Ocoee Regional Sports Complex. And then at 7, we have City Center West Orange, which is about 500 luxury apartments along with 200,000 square feet of office, retail, entertainment, and restaurant space. And then we have the Darren Center as well, which is another medical facility. So Ocoee's really starting to become a good medical hub as well, on top of its corporate demand that exists there today. But you can see between the Ocoee Regional Sports Complex, City Center West Orange, and Mannheim, all great demand generators for weekday demand, which is a crucial part of driving occupancy, especially in a leisure market like Orlando. This is the Ocoee Regional Sports Complex, very exciting project. $300 million project, open in 2025. It's a 150-acre site made up of 16 baseball fields, 9 batting cages, 7 retail or restaurant buildings, and about 20,000 square feet of office space. These 16 baseball fields are interchangeable. They can be softball or little league, so it's not just catered to baseball. It's anticipated to create over 1,000 jobs. Property values near the complex are expected to increase over 18%. And the tourism revenue from this project is expected to exceed $500 million annually. And these numbers are from the city of Ocoee. So here's Mannheim. As mentioned, it's within 0.5 miles of the asset. It's over 268 acres of wholesale auction. That has over 436 employees. On any given Tuesday, that's their biggest auction day. They bring in anywhere from 500 to 1,000 people to the auction, where they're doing about 5,500 to 7,000 vehicles over a 25-lane auction. They do thousands more within the week through refurbishments that are sold. So great demand generator for the asset, which is again literally 0.5 miles from the hotel. You can walk there.
So this graph is provided to us from SDR, from Smith Travel, and what you'll notice here is that this green line, represents occupancy projections for the future. You can see that for the overall market, the forecast is from 26 through 29 to remain pretty consistent in the mid-70s. Overall, for the overall market, and average rates will increase. So there's a strong belief that the average rates will continue to go up and exceed $220 by the year 2029. Choice ran this projections based on a comp set of hotels that they selected, and they believe that the property will that this property as an upscale will fold into this particular set of hotels. You have a set right, if you can see them here, you have a Hilton Garden Inn, an A-Loft hotel, an AC hotel, a Courtyard, a Hyatt Place, and of course the Fairfield, which is right next door. I'm sorry. So what this is, this trend report is made by a company called Smith Travel Research. They've been in business for over 50 years. Hotels, active hotels participate on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis by reporting statistics, and then they are matched up with a competitive set, so that the hotels can see how they perform.
The brand looks at the site first and foremost and weighs its opportunity for success. And they dive into the market, and they have people regionally that really know the areas quite well. They dive into the market and they put together what they consider to be their competitive set to see how the property could perform. There's no upside in the property failing for anybody. Anybody in this room, and certainly not for the brand, right? Nobody wants to see the property fail. So when they put this together, these were some of the numbers that this competitive set generated. And as you can see, if we looked at total years for 22 and 23, 22 did 68.4 in occupancy, and then 76.4, and then in average rate it did 166, and then 170, and then year to date through July, that competitive set is averaging 80%. And if you look at the prior 2 years through July, year to date, they ran 77 and then 69, and an average rate for the first 7 months, that competitive set is running 174 to last year's 172, same period to date to the year before's 166, and then below is the RevPAR, revenue per available room. That's simply taking your average, your occupancy times the average rate, and that gives you your RevPAR. That's a measurement that the investment and industry uses at large to weigh the success of an asset against a competitive set. So once you're up and running, you produce financial numbers. You run an STR report on a monthly basis. We get weekly reports actually to see how we're pacing. And it shows you how you're pacing in RevPAR index, but how you're pacing in occupancy and average rate index that leads us into the RevPAR index. So this is, for us, when we saw this from Choice, it was an eye-opener at first glance to look into further what's creating this demand to keep this occupancy moving in this direction. Ownership ran through a third party, a company called the Betty Group. They ran a feasibility study. And in that study, they came back with projections. And you can see their ADR and occupancy year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. Okay? We'll get into our numbers and what makes up our numbers, but we took the approach from where STR is running, which is the report I had just shown you. And if you fast forward to 2026, we come out in our first year at 172 ADR at a 77.5% occupancy. Now, let's remember, that's 77% of 116 rooms, not of 600 rooms, 500 rooms, or 300 rooms, or 200 rooms. It's 116 keys, right? So we have to keep into relation, right? Every 10% occupancy is about 11 rooms, right? So my point of that is, it may seem when you look at occupancy, but you have to relate to the number of keys as well, right? So
this really was what really excited me about this project. When we got the day of the week, looked month by month, as you can see, and then showing by day of week. Now, most hotels in Orlando, it's a big leisure market. It's not necessarily a big corporate market. There's a lot of hotels that were built to capture leisure business. So often, during valley periods when the kids aren't out of school, a lot of hotels in Orlando kind of struggle on weekdays. if they don't, not big boxes that have huge, you know, meeting space and they can do conventions and go after big group business, they really are kind of limited. And their weekdays are softer, if you look at the average throughout the year. This hotel, this comp set, excuse me, gets occupancies by day of week that are really amazing. The only really day that you can consider a little bit of a soft day is Sunday. But Monday, 73.7%, Tuesday, 83.4 average, Wednesday, 84.3, Thursday, 77.4, Friday, 81.6, and Saturday, 85.9. Now, also, this is before that major sports complex is being built in the area. This is, you know, it's kind of an amazing, really amazing feat that this hotel is, this comp set is already drawing these kind of occupancies throughout the year. This is a 12-month rolling average by day of week. Now, what's also amazing, if you go to the next slide, Robert, is the average rates that it's been running from August of 23 to July of 24. Sunday, 160.97 on Sundays. And remember, that was at a 61 occupancy on average. And then Monday, you're at 165.62. Tuesday, 173.29. Wednesday, 175.19. So when you look at those numbers, those peaks on Tuesday and Wednesday, what that means is that the whole market, the whole comp set, this whole comp set, they're able on average to produce enough demand where they can yield their highest rates by rate plan, by market segment, whatever, you know, and they're able to achieve these numbers consistently. And then Thursday at 166.46, because probably a lot of those corporate guests tend to check out on Thursday. But then on Friday, the weekend business comes in. And the rates are even higher. You got 173.93 and 182.05 on Saturday. Averaging for the last 12 months, an average of 171.69. Robert, what was that number again? That was our forecast for our first year?
172.50.
172. So, and that's not for another, 2 years, right? So we believe very strongly in the demand of this particular asset. It'll take advantage of this particular demand. So that's very exciting to us. You may ask, where the business is going to come from exactly? So before I get granular about it, obviously the weekday, Sundays through Thursdays, local corporate negotiated, corporate group doing business with Mannheim, Cisco, Paradise Grill Corporation, Orlando Health, Darren Center Companies, just to name a few. And then on the weekends, Friday and Saturday, we in the first year we put some SMRF groups, what we call them SMRF groups. They're actually, it stands for Social, Military, Educational, Religious, or Fraternal Organizations. We believe that most of that's going to come by way of sporting events, the soccer, softball, and baseball. And then we'll get some demand, obviously, from the millions of Choice loyalty members and their national sales team, which is, for anybody that's in the hotel business, you know about the annual it's kind of an event annually where the brands, what they do is they give you up to RFPs, requests for proposal. For major corporations, they negotiate volume rates.
5-year performance. So, as Mitch and Marco Jr. have indicated, so we take a trend, that's our baseline. We look at what the history of the market has done. We look at competitive sets. We allowed Choice to run a competitive set. We ran our own internal competitive set as well, trying to understand the differences between theirs, ours, the previous group that the ownership had engaged, which was Betty Group. We run a full first-year detail. Okay, so through we start with market segmentation, as Mitch just went through, on a 12-month basis. So January through December, we outline every single market. segment itself on occupancy, ADR. We understand where the revenue components from every single market segment should come through. That rolls into our first year rooms revenue. From there, we do a staffing guide, so we know exactly what the brand staffing guide is compared to what Paramount's overall staffing and the components of what we want to deliver. So that goes into the rooms division, it rolls into housekeeping. So we take into consideration brand and Paramount's roles relative to what our housekeeping standards are. So we filter in average length of stays. So we do a full, as if the hotel was already operating and we're going to be doing a budget for next year. That's how we build year one. We run food and beverage projections. We do revenue per occupied rooms to understanding what our mix of business from lunch to dinner is going to be, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Average checks, we take that into consideration whenever we're running out our food and beverage performance. The beverage, of course, is all driven by the upstairs and the environment that we're going to create on the upstairs component. That's a revenue per occupied room. So, and I think the interesting thing is what we're looking at. So we haven't taken into consideration any of the outside market into our numbers. This is all in-house capture plus what we consider to be coming from the Fairfield. So we haven't taken into consider any walk-in traffic. So the consumers within the Ocoee coming into this, that's all added revenue. So food and beverage then drives payrolls for food and beverage, cost per food and beverage costs of goods sales. They are budgeted within what our averages are for our operating hotels. So that runs into the actual profit for food and beverage. And then we take into first year staffing guides for admin and general, which is your general manager. We run a centralized accounting for efficiencies. We run a centralized human resource for efficiencies. Then all of course, the largest expense inside of admin in general, for those that are not familiar with hotels, is your credit card commissions. So that's the largest expense in there. IT, so that's a growing demand relative to every hotel business that's out there. So this is mobile key, this is kiosks. So this is the property management system, your sales and marketing. So all of that goes into IT. Your internet service providers are in there as well. So, and then we've broken this out into to two segments. So we have the sales and marketing expense, and then we also have franchise. Traditionally, those are rolled into sales and marketing. We wanted to see them separate on this financial, so this way everyone could be able to understand what our roles relative to sales and marketing. So we're going to have a revenue manager, we'll have a sales and marketing director for the facility itself, complemented by our corporate team and our e-commerce division. Heat, power, and light is very specific. Maintenance, of course, is just the engineering team that handles the maintenance of the facility. So, and then you have the franchise fees. So this franchise cost itself is based upon what Cambria has indicated will be our franchise fees, and then there is some extra costs that are in there relative to reservation fees and promotions relative to the choice program members. So those will all be modified as we understand what their contribution from their members to the facility will be. These, of course, are estimates, and as we get closer, so Cambria has already indicated the fact is as we get closer, they're going to be working with us to actually put together more of a first year operating budget. So, but we've already provided this to them, and they do not see any issues relative to our strategy in doing our budgeting process. Management fees, leased equipment, your real estate taxes, and then of course insurance. And if anybody has a business or a home in the Orlando and Florida market, you understand what insurance has done over the course since COVID. So and this runs out to, of course, EBITDA, replacement reserves. So and then EBITDA minus replacement reserves. So I'll start with first year. So this is our build. Okay. We take our first year, as Mitch indicated, relative to the market segmentation, and then we build upon that for year 2, year 3, year 4, and year 5, understanding what our occupancy levels will be, what our average rates could potentially be at the time, and then what our RevPAR is. So we filter in all of that. Our model then takes into consideration staffing guides for each one of those areas, rooms, food and beverage. Now, we take a year-over-year increase in food and beverage from year 1 to year 2 of 5% food and beverage. When it goes from year 2 to year 3, it's a 3% on the food and a 5% on beverage, and then it goes to 3 and 3 and 3 and 3. So every year out, you're building upon, because you're getting to know your client better. So in the food and beverage, you're modifying your menus, you're making new designs, you're trying to understand your consumer base a little bit better, and you're able to offer a more specialized menu, which then in turn also allows you to be able to increase your pricing on your menu costs. So as we go across each one, so operating profit off of the operating areas is budgeted across 70.5% or $4.5 million in year 1. That increases to 71.5 or $5 million in year 2. Year 3, 71.8% or $5.5 million, 72.1% or $5.9, and then when we get to year 5, we're at $6.2 million or 72.3. So as we build out our budgets, we also take into consideration CoStar. So CoStar and Smith Travel, they put out a hotel profitability study every single year that takes into consideration the entire market, so from West Coast to East Coast. Takes into consideration every type of hotel, suburban, urban. So we compare our numbers to make sure, one is this going to be specific for this one market itself? So we compare these performers relative to our own 4 operating hotels to making sure that they are in line with what we are currently running as departmental profits. And then, of course, all of the A&G, all of the undistributed expenses are either going to be based upon slight increases in payrolls. We're going to have, and I'll give an example relative to the formula that's inside of the A&G line. So we extract credit card commissions from one year to the next. We do a multiplier relative to everything else. Okay, so all of the payrolls, all of the professional liability, all of the other costs that are inside of A&G. So, and then we layer back credit card commissions as to gross revenue as a percentage. So, so as revenues increase, so that specific line account fluctuates and adjusts. So, cost inside of maintenance is more of on a cost per occupied room, and so is utilities. So, and then we build across. So, from year 1, we're looking at $2,119,000 or 32.6% profit. That goes to $2.4 million or 34.2% in year 2, 2.7 or 35.2% in year 3. We're almost at $3 million by year 4, or 35.9%, and then we're right over $3 million at $3.1 million or 36.1%. So if you compare these numbers to the hotel profitability study for an upscale property in this market, you'll see that these operating EBITDA numbers are in line with their estimates for what hotels are already operating. So for 116 key Cambria.
Paramount's a family-owned business. We started the company in early 2000, like 2001. I've been in the hotel business 48 years. So 65, I started when I was 16, 17 years old, right in that neighborhood. So I've worked for almost every major brand, and I came up through the brands. And here in the Orlando market, we started with our first asset, which is Florida. Okay, this company started not to be the biggest, but to try to take down future projects, but in a very successful manner. And